Marisa Norcross.
And I'm Dave Freund, and this is The Next Page.
Hi, Dave. Today we are taking a trip down memory lane.
We are. Episode 45, by the way.
Really?
Yes.
I've lost track.
That is amazing. Episode 45.
I know.
We are. We're taking a trip down memory lane, and it may sound strange for our listeners. I'm back in Studio 7, and it's bothering me because it's echoing really bad. But hopefully the recording won't have too much echo in it.
Well, I can't really notice on my end if that helps you feel any better.
Okay, it will, because I've been concerned about a few of our recordings, and really only one of them's turned out bad. But yes, we're taking a trip down memory lane, and the blog post that we're talking about today was titled "Lessons from Max."
Yeah, tell us a little bit about Max.
So Max passed away at 93 years old a couple weeks ago. He was the father of my best friend, who now lives out in Arizona. And, you know, Max always had a very fond place in my heart and in my life. But I never really thought about the important role that he played in my life until my best friend, my buddy, said, you know, Dave, would you come and have my dad's funeral?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a few days to think about it. And so I started thinking about what role Max played in my life. Now, Max was born in Switzerland. He came to this country with his young bride when he realized that Switzerland really didn't offer a lot of opportunity. He was an electrical engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And Switzerland's a really tough place to live. You know, they sell their land by the square meter. In Switzerland, we sell it by the acre. So that kind of tells you how tough it is there.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, homes are owned by generations of people, not individuals. Like it would just, you know, you might have the chance to live in the house that mom and dad owned that they got from grandma and grandpa, kind of thing.
We do that.
Yeah.
I actually do live that.
But at least you have an opportunity to own another home if you wanted to.
Yes.
And in Europe, that's very, very, very difficult. So Max and his young bride Dorley decided to come to the New World. So they actually went first to Toronto and then to Syracuse. Max was employee number 6 at G.A. Braun.
Wow. Which
is kind of interesting. He was recruited by Mr. G.A. Braun himself to help develop this industrial washer business. So I remember Max taught me how to snow ski. Was great learning from somebody that was almost born on skis. You know, I was at their house frequently. I mentioned at the funeral that Max introduced, you know, this hayseed from Central Ohio to London broil. I had never had London broil in my life, but they had a really neat house up on Skyline Drive up here on Onondaga Hill, and in the kitchen was designed actually in it was a grill. It was like a gas grill that was inside the kitchen, which was really cool. Had this stone enclosure, if I remember it correctly, and it was just a lot of great memories. But there were some interesting things as I was thinking about Max, and when I listened to some other folks at the funeral, Max was a tremendous encourager. There were so many people that were there that just said, you know, Max just knew how to encourage us.
Mm-hmm.
He made you believe that you could do some things. And so when I was listening to his nephew talk and I was listening to his son talk a little bit, 2 things I wrote about. One was never look back. Max and his wife had some heartache in their life. Their first child, a boy, passed away at childbirth.
Wow.
During childbirth. They had the first child died at childbirth. Then they had 2 girls. Then my buddy Tom was born. Then after Tom, there were a set of twins, Karen, and Karen's twin, also a boy, died just before childbirth. I never ever heard any complaining, any bitterness, nothing. They never looked back. The other thing that was interesting when I heard people talk about Max, so if he got to a point in his life where he tried everything, when he tried to solve everything he could, once he got to a point where he realized there wasn't anything more he could do, he moved on with positive energy that was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this man was just a bundle of energy. So I'm thinking, okay, I learned a lesson from, and I actually referred to him as Uncle Max. From Uncle Max, I learned, never look back, just move on. The other one, this was a story that I never realized about him. I knew that he was very resourceful. I knew that, here as an engineer, he was always looking for ways. But one of the things that Tom said was, my dad always had an alternate plan. And it wasn't plan number 1 or number 2. He would say, Tom, this is plan 54 or 57. And what he was sharing with his son was, always look for a way to find your solution. Never give up.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a solution. We just haven't figured it out yet. And it was interesting just to start thinking about the lessons that people have taught us that maybe we haven't realized.
Right.
And that's what got me to write about Max. Who is it in our lives that is adding value to us, that's speaking into our life that maybe we've never thought of because we just keep rushing through? Another story I heard about Max was, so his nephew was also helping out with the funeral. And and his nephew's Urs. And so Urs was saying that Urs's dad died when Urs was very young. And here Max, it's 21 years old, travels to this more remote part in Switzerland just to be able to spend some time with these boys who had lost the father figure in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So that told me a lot about Max's character. I never thought of him as this extremely feeling kind of person. Not that he was unfeeling, but he was just not very formal. Just he was straightforward. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Right.
He spent time with kids. Unbelievable. Like they had a camp on DeRuyter Lake. When our church youth group would go out there, Max would spend hours teaching kids to water ski, which if you've ever pulled a boat while kids are learning to water ski, it is one of the most tedious, painstaking things. Yet for Max, no, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help these kids. So again, my point was, who is it that's speaking into our life? And why do we wait till a funeral comes to say something to them?
Right. When we could, reflect on those things now and share
Exactly.
share them. I'm sure you wish you could have shared some of these things with Max himself.
Yeah.
And thanked
I really
him
wish
for
I
the
could
lessons. Yeah.
Exactly. I do have a picture that, so my grandson's name is Max.
Mm-hmm.
And so my daughter-in-law and her kids went out to visit her in-laws, her parents, excuse me, in Phoenix, Arizona, and that's where Max was staying for the last 10 years of his life, up until just before he passed. A few months before he passed, he moved in with one of his daughters, but which was a little bit closer. But so I have a picture of, old Max and young Max, sitting with my daughter-in-law, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So I'll always have that remembrance. And again, I just, the great friendship that I have with my friend that was really encouraged by his dad. So my thought was, maybe you and I could chat a little bit about, how do we remember people?
Right.
What could we do that would help people make the most of the experiences they've had in their lives with people before it's too late?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I put some thoughts down, and one of them was, take time to reflect on wonderful times on a frequent basis. And I thought and you and I mentioned before we started recording, at Thanksgiving, a lot of times people say, what are you thankful for? What are you grateful for? And we talk about it. Well, why not just every now and then get the family together and say, hey, who's spoken into your life? Who's had an impact in your life, and how?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that would be a great way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I just recently had an opportunity to do some of that with my family. Excuse me. We just went on a family vacation. And
great.
It's tough now that everyone's grown up. My sister, that's the youngest, she's 21. So she's in college, but my brother and I are older and married and have children. So it's hard to get everyone together. But
sure.
But when we did, it was amazing. We didn't even really have to try to do that. It just sort of happened. And it was just so special to be able to reflect on experiences and things that we're grateful for, especially with, the most recent birth of my nephew.
Right.
And all being able to be together to celebrate that. And, but it reminds me of something that we used to do, years ago as well, when my brother, who's the oldest, went to college. He went away to Washington, D.C., to American University. And so we didn't see him very much. But when we did go visit, or when he came home, we always made a point to like go out to dinner, and just kind of make that like our opportunity for sharing.
Sure.
And it was also like there could be like no judgment. So there were kind of boundaries and rules. Like there could be no judgment, and if you admitted to something, like you couldn't get in trouble for it. So it was also like a humorous opportunity to kind of be like, oh yeah, hey, like remember when like you couldn't find that shirt? Well, like I took it and then I spilled something on it, and so then I got, I got rid of it. just wanted to put that out there, and it was kind of like a fun.
That you thought was lost. No, it wasn't lost. I threw it away.
Yeah, yeah. So it was fun, and we have like hilarious memories from those nights as well. And again, it kind of just gives us that opportunity to be thankful for each other.
Something else that I think we need to do more of is the advent of digital photography means that there are more, and I don't remember the statistics, but there are more pictures being taken now than ever at any time in history because it's so much easier. What are we doing with them other than posting them on, Instagram and Facebook?
It's funny, as you mentioned that, I'm actually sitting at my kitchen table with prints that we just picked up from Industrial Color Labs and some frames that we're hanging, because we just had that same realization. It's like we have all these photos of Isla, and both professional ones and ones that my husband's taken, and we're like, what are we doing with all of these? Right. And we hung some from our wedding just recently, which was about 3 years ago. and it, it's like amazing it took us that long to get those hung up in our bedroom. It's crazy.
That's right. Recently, my wife was going through some slides, believe it or not, that tells you how old they were, where, when she came to this country from Austria, her uncle a bunch of people met them at the Cleveland airport. And we were looking at the pictures, and it brought back so many wonderful memories of people and what things were like then. And I just think and I remember as a kid, it was a real treat when my family would say, let's look at slides. And my dad would get out the screen and the slide projector, and we just loved it. And in retrospect, what we were doing, my parents were giving me a great, and my brother and sister, this wonderful snapshot of history, so to speak. I remember seeing the pictures of, when my parents first got married and their first house, and those type of things, and things that occurred long before I was born, but that gave us this piece of history. And I think we need to find ways of getting back to that. And it's so much easier now. Pull out the iPad and sit down with your kids and, mirror it up to your TV or whatever, your iPad to your TV, so that you can start showing it. It's so much easier than it used to be, but we don't do it.
Yes.
Take the time to look at those pictures. And one of the things, this came up in a training. I was doing a training yesterday and today, and somebody said, so what do you do with bad memories? And nobody's ever asked me that question. So as typical trainer technique, I threw it back to the group. I said, well, so what do you think we should do with bad memories? And it was interesting. The one gentleman in the room said, well, we need to find out, is there a learning in that memory? Is there a lesson that we can learn? And I said, great. So then what do we do with it? Well, once we learn the lesson, we put it away and we move on. So we really need to understand that that memories allow us to almost have a springboard. Memories allow us to be grateful. And gratitude is a springboard to action and to higher motives for living. That was a quote that I pulled out of somebody's writing. So let me read that again. Gratitude is a springboard to action and to higher motives for living. So I thought about Max, I thought about what the things that Uncle Max did in my life. I thought about the blessing he was in my life, and it encouraged me to do those type of things for others.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting. So this funeral that I had, it was in Akron. There were so many people there. It's amazing. When people die, you realize how much they were loved.
Yeah.
Because the family was waiting, and there were people that showed up, and we thought that maybe they would just come to the viewing, the calling hours, and then leave, but they all kept staying, and the poor funeral director kept having to add chair after chair after chair. Mm-hmm. And so we had a wonderful time of just sharing and remembering this fine gentleman that had passed on. And then on the way home in the car, my wife and I talked about it. And then the next day in our church, I was asked to have the morning service there, and I just continued a memorial service for Max because I knew him when he lived here in Syracuse. And when I finished, another gentleman said one of the lessons he learned from Max, talk about never giving up and optimism. So thinking Max was a salesman for G.A. Braun, he was in Seattle, and he had learned that a customer in Hawaii, a potential customer, had decided to buy a machine from somebody else. And I can tell you this, that Max never took no for an answer. But he was never abrasive. So he called this potential customer in Hawaii and said, "Have you signed a purchase order yet?" And they said, "No, not yet." And he said, "Please don't. I'm in Seattle. Give me 2 days. I'll be there." Wow. And he paid. So he buys the ticket to go to Hawaii, meets with the people, and he sold them the machines. Because he just had this unbounding optimism and this pleasant, polite persistence, so to speak, to convince them of those things. So, again, it was a funeral, and all of us started reflecting, started listening to lessons that we could learn from people. And that, to me, that's just the beautiful thing here. So memories are an inevitable aspect of our life. And the positives ones indicate not just the ability to do or see amazing things, but to make these moments lasting by how we think about them.
And share them with others.
So the value of, so imagine if I would have just kept all of my memories of Max to myself. Imagine if my friend at my church who shared the story that Max shared with him about the trip to Hawaii, if he would have kept it to himself. We really need to spend time taking these memories and sharing them with people. I do have a question for you, Marisa, and I didn't give you this as a heads up. So in your family, are there any things that your family does that are unique that help create memories?
Anything unique? That's a good question. I don't know if we have anything unique. I think in general, like one of the things that we've always enjoyed doing as a family to cultivate memories and share legacy, like we'll get out those videos and those pictures and watch them. I remember, we don't have a video of my parents' wedding. It just wasn't like very popular to do back then, but we'll get the pictures out. But my aunt, she got married about 9 years after my parents. So she does have a video from her wedding. And I just remember we will watch that. It feels like we watched it at least once a year as a family. Because,
isn't that interesting?
Well, it was kind of like the last time that my grandfather was really in decent enough health.
Okay.
And so it gives us an opportunity, and especially for my cousins who never met him, because I was the last one to know him,
I see.
to kind of see him. And like, he was a very entertaining person. He was in a band, so we have some videos of him in the band, and we can kind of share that as a family. And now, now we've all gotten married, we've made sure that we do videos of have a videographer at our wedding, so that when we have kids and grandchildren, and we can reflect on that. And we do. I mean, Derek and I, we still watch our wedding video often, like every few months. And Isla will watch it, and she'll say, "Mommy and Daddy," and she recognizes my parents and Derek's parents and her family members. So I mean, that's just kind of something special that we like to do. I don't know if we have any unique traditions or anything like that. How about you?
Nothing special, nothing unique. Again, it's so, because I'm a generation older than you, it was slides instead of videos because, I remember the first camcorder that my dad had, and he looked like he was, the videographer for Channel 9 because it sat on your shoulder.
Yes.
And, and the quality was so poor, but that's all we had. But that came along when my kids were born that we started doing videos, but it was slides, and it seemed that whenever my family moved from Ohio when I was 4, and whenever the other family members from Ohio would come to visit, it seemed to be the excuse to get out the slide projector, so to speak, and just watch the slides. The other thing that there were a few occasions, but not nearly enough, and I don't know why, when our church family would do things like, maybe it was a couple that had their 50th anniversary, and we would get up and ask them to share about, times in their life and history of that maybe we didn't know. And I think even if now thinking about our members, our MACNY members, I don't think our companies are doing enough about remembering the people that were there, that have worked there in the past. I really love it when I go into an organization and, you can see pictures of the presidents of the company throughout time. But are we remembering the employees that made significant contributions, perhaps? Are we taking enough time to take company photos of our teams, of our employees, our coworkers, those that are helping us make our companies great, and identifying, are we honoring people? I guess that's the way to put it.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because we were just saying in our annual dinner planning meeting that we're like, we haven't gotten an all-staff MACNY photo in quite a while. So one of our goals for this year's annual dinner is to get the entire staff, because this is really the only time we are all together in the same place.
Yep.
And we are taking our MACNY photo.
Wow. Okay, so that's good.
Warning.
Warning. So,
but yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that.
I should be dressed appropriately for that.
We figured everyone would be.
Yeah, we're all going to be dressed up.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe this would be a great time to challenge our listeners. Send us some of your greatest memories of people that have really impacted your life. And how they did it. Just if you'd like to have somebody recognized, just let us know. And we would be happy to share that, because I really believe that I'm hoping that everybody has at least one, as I refer to him as Uncle Max, in their life. Yes, my father is still and will always be my greatest mentor, but I had people like Max and Don Du and others that really went out of their way to encourage me and to teach me and to be patient with me. And if once we identify, as we begin to share these stories with people, I really believe that we're going to be able to encourage other people to do the same thing with folks. And man, wouldn't that be great if we end up just generating a lot of positive energy, positive thoughts and actions to say, you know what, people were great to you. Go do the same with others.
Yep.
So I think that's all I got on.
I like that.
Lessons from Max.
That's great.
So we really need to, I'm hoping people will do that. Will send stuff to us.
Yep.
So how do they know where to send it? They can look in the show notes, right?
Look in the show notes. Yeah, I think we've got our email addresses in there.
We do. We have email addresses, all those details there. Certainly want to encourage people to subscribe, to, again, give reviews to our podcast. I just had a coaching client that I've been working with for 9 months that didn't know we did a podcast.
Oh, wow.
I'm thinking, you must not be getting the blog posts either that come out as a weekly email. So I'll have to figure out how I missed that one. But
yes, if you're not getting our emails, go to macne.org and you'll be able to find one of them on the homepage. And once you find one, there's an opportunity to subscribe. So you can type in your name and email address and hit submit, and it'll actually send me an email. It doesn't just go out into like the middle of nowhere on the internet. It actually comes straight to me, and I will personally add you to the list.
Awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
So anything special this weekend?
No. hoping for some decent weather to start working on the yard, and got
Good.
some plants that need repotting, and I'd much rather do that out in the yard instead of in my garage.
Sure.
How about you?
Nothing special. Just I'm finally home. I've been gone for 2 weekends,
Mm-hmm.
and it's time to just be home.
Good. That's always nice.
And I'm glad for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea what I'm writing about next week.
All right. Well, I won't ask.
So we'll see. If you have an idea, Marissa, just text me.
Okay, well.
So with that, I'm Dave Freund.
I'm Marisa Norcross.
And this was The Next Page.